Hi, I'm Alex, a higher education consultant. Now, in my essay, I argue that by the end of 2028, more than half of UK higher education institutions, particularly those operating with constrained resources and infrastructure, will have reverted to in-person proctored assessments for high-stake summative assignments. Now, at first glance, that sounds counterintuitive, as artificial intelligence becomes increasingly embedded in professional practice. We might expect higher education to move in the same direction. Yet what I envision, in the short term at least, is the opposite. Much like the resistance that accompanied the introduction of calculators into classrooms back in the day, AI is and will continue to meet significant pushback in higher education. Now, that resistance is driven primarily by concerns about verifying student authorship and, in some cases, fears that AI may undermine core aspects of the learning process. Now, my central position is that in the short term, many institutions will prioritize regulatory defensibility over educational alignment with contemporary professional practice. Now, this return to proctored assessment is not pedagogically driven. Instead, it reflects institutional risk aversion in the face of rapidly accelerating AI capability, with the longer-term risk being that all alternative routes for AI upskilling will outpace higher education if institutions fail to adapt. We find ourselves in this position because we are still in an early growth phase of AI, marked by rapid advances in multimodal impersonation. Now, as a result, verifying student authorship outside invigilated settings is becoming increasingly unreliable. Now, this directly challenges what higher education institutions have traditionally relied upon as the foundations of outcome-based assessment, demonstrable student authorship, and the maintenance of academic integrity. Now, for institutions that lack the staffing capacity, funding, or AI literacy needed to redesign assessments at pace, the safest option, and also the most familiar, is a return to in-person proctored assessment. However, this approach reinforces dated assumptions about how students should be assessed and forgets to consider what academic integrity means in an AI-rich world. Looking forward, higher education institutions are increasingly caught between competing external pressures. On the one hand, regulators and accreditation bodies will prioritize verifiable authorship from students and procedural integrity. On the other hand, employers want graduates who can use AI critically, creatively, and responsibly in a real-world context. Now, while proctored assessments do support authorship verification, they also narrow assessments to constructs such as rote memorization and performance under pressure. Now, these skills still matter, but they are not sufficient in an AI-augmented professional environment that demands judgment, iteration, collaboration, and the ability to evaluate and challenge AI outputs. So, I guess, in conclusion, the widespread return to proctored assessment should be understood as a defensive and temporary response rather than meaningful reform. Now, if sustained, it risks leaving institutions increasingly misaligned with contemporary professional practice, shifting the burden onto employers to assess AI competence through alternative credentials and experience beyond traditional degree programs. Ultimately, the long-term value of higher education will depend not on excluding AI, but on redefining assessments and academic integrity around transparent, ethical, and competent AI use.